But she does jump on there, no, promote her panelist.
I'm sorry,
I said she's not on there, but if she does, I'll promote her.
as a panelist, okay, all right. Okay, so it is Tuesday, July 23rd at 4:02 p.m. and this is the public hearing we're holding on the town's plan to issue bonds to buy the church up the road. So this is the time for the public to come have comments or questions. So we do have 3 people in the room here that I assume have some questions. So why don't you guys, well, first off, we have to open the public hearing, sorry. So I will take a motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now, if any of the 3 of you in the audience have questions or comments or anything that you would like to ask about the bonds that we want to issue, then please go ahead and come up to the podium and ask your questions or make your comments.
You got anything, Jay?
I'm sure Jay has questions or comments. Why don't you come up to the come up here so you can talk in the microphone so it can get recorded really clearly.
This is gonna be for both A1 and A2.
Yes,
Okay. Okay, are we doing both at the same
Yes.
time or? just-
Yes.
Oh,
we're doing both at the same time.
Okay, I was just, is the 2.5 million, is that,
2.5.
yeah, 2.5, that's the total cost of
No,
the acquisition or?
no, it is not the cost of the acquisition. What the bond attorney told us is that they recommended that we do the paperwork for more money than what it's going to take, just in case we run into a problem. Then we don't have to come back and try to do this process again. But what we're asking for is 1.8.
Okay,
Okay, and
And
in the resolution, it says that the bond that we are applying for is it says we're applying for 1.8, which is what I said, and that the bonds are not to exceed 2.5 million,
okay.
even though we're only asking for 1.8.
Okay. Yeah, the rest of that, I understand, I just, was curious, are you, anticipating, any, changes inside that's gonna cost a lot of money or?
Well, the price for the church is 1.3. And we're asking for 1.8 to cover the cost of some potential renovations that we want to do inside. We had a contractor come and go through the building with a whole bunch of subcontractors and told them some ideas we have, such as new carpet. Replace the windows, because the windows are all that frosted stuff and the light doesn't really come in. And so we wanted better windows, a new paint job, and the lights are all fluorescent lights, and we wanted to have the lights replaced with something that's not fluorescent. And so we had some not bids, but estimates on what all that would cost. And that came to close to $400,000. So we went a little over and asked for another 5. And that's how we came up with 1.8.
Okay.
Okay.
That was all question I had. Thank you.
Skip with Mo. I guess mostly I have to apologize first for not keeping up with this, so I do have a few questions.
Okay.
Along the lines of the cost, That's okay, I'm just not really familiar with how the bond gets paid back. And then what does it mean to every resident of Virgin?
We pay it back out of our, general fund. That is the money that we receive for revenue from tourists, sales tax, that kind of revenue. So we've got the transient room tax, we've got resort tax, sales tax, and
Property tax.
and there's property taxes.
Sure.
And then I think there's some sort of highway taxes that are, we also get, so all of those we get as a share of taxes, all of those taxes from the state every month, and they go direct deposited into our bank account.
Right.
And we'll be using that to pay. We're not raising taxes on anybody, to cover that.
And you feel comfortable enough looking down the road at our budget that we're gonna be able to meet those payments?
I do, I ran it by the treasurer before and our CPA. I had all of them look at everything to see if they felt that we could cover the payments. And then, of course, the bank who was going to do the financing also looked at all of our financials and were like, oh. And Leroy explained at one of our meetings back in like February or March, that the way the bank looks at our financial statements and they run it through a system that gives us a number. And if you are less than a certain number, they think you cannot make your payments.
Sure.
And we were vastly above that number. Whatever the number is that they would not lend the money, we were several points above that because they felt that we were, that we had enough money.
And that's a good question. That's the one that several council members asked before we proceeded with going through the bond process, whether we could pay it in the future. So that's a good question and one that we asked also ourselves.
And just to be on the safe side, to explain, I got, I had the CPA send me really quickly this morning the financial statement from the end of June. They emailed it to me this afternoon. And right now we have available that we could write a check. We have sitting in a bank account right now, something in the neighborhood of $3.3 million. So if we want to write a check for 1.3, we still have 2 million sitting in the bank. So we would not actually need to do the bonding. We could buy it outright if we wanted to. But if we did that, that would take away money we could spend on some other projects in town.
Sure.
And so the bonding lets us buy the church and spend money on other projects in town.
Okay, so that kind of answers my next question, that you have probably taken into account unforeseens because they're happening.
Yes, unforeseens happen all the time.
Right.
Yes, because I think we were all concerned. And that's why we're asking the CPA and the treasurer to do an analysis for us. Because anything can happen where all of a sudden, they shut down the park like they've done before, and then all of a sudden there's no tourists and there's no income. And so what I feel okay about is the fact that we have this money sitting in the bank that is there if we were to decide we didn't want to do the bond process, that we could just buy it outright. And that we still have quite a bit.
Okay, that sounds good. I thought it was my understanding that a revenue bond doesn't always, but sometimes includes rental of space that you own through this bond, and you can generate monies through that.
When we renovated this building here, which was in 2014, I think it was, we went through the bond process, and that one, we told them, because at the time the town was just on the edge of bankruptcy. And we got the financing for this because we felt that we would be able to rent the place out for events and things, and that would help pay the, annual payment. And that was the case with this building, but that building, I don't see renting it out for anything. And so it would just be the revenues we were talking about with our tax revenues.
How many square feet are up there?
You know, I don't know. I've got the floor plan, but I'm not sure the floor plan says how many square feet.
That's
it
okay,
is.
you're gonna do something different than its intended purpose anyways. So I imagine you're gonna do some other remodeling in there that allows for different spaces for your purposes.
Well, it actually has we're not gonna have to do much. It's really well laid out. Other than what I said, like painting or carpet or new windows and stuff, the structure of the building, I see no need to change at all. And inside, there was only 2 rooms. Well, 4 rooms that I was thinking of making into 2. Possibly, depending on what everybody thinks when we get in there. But, other than that, I didn't see any structural changes in there. Cause it's really nice. What do you think, Paul?
It was pretty nice, but to answer your question, is we really haven't had a discussion and public involvement as to what that renovation would look like. So it's quite possible we could change it based on public comment.
Right, that's true.
But we haven't quite got there yet. But from what I saw, it was pretty minimal. And it's something that you could renovate down in the future if you needed to also. But it's still open to public comment on the
Okay.
process.
Yeah, because, there wasn't much to be able to get the public involved, because we only got into it 2 times. They would not let us have a key. And it had to be arranged, an appointment and everything to be able to go in and look at anything. So there's been no public involvement because we couldn't include the public yet.
And if this goes forward, how soon do you anticipate moving into the structure or?
Well, I had thought, my first thought was given, just walking around and looking at how big the space was and what to do. My gut feeling was a year from the time we close and get the key in our hand to be able to move in and do anything, although the contractor we had come in and look at it just to give us an estimate, so we would know what to ask for a loan. He felt that they could have it done in 6 months, and I'm like, I don't know about that, but, so anywhere from 6 months to a year, maybe,
Sure. That's
6 to 12 months?
Yeah.
That's my thought.
All right, that pretty much covers what I was thinking about, but thank you.
Okay.
It looks like it's a good plan to move forward with that too.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Skip. Good questions.
Any other questions on your mind while he was talking, Jay? No more questions? Come up here and talk to the microphone. So that it gets recorded. Yeah.
I don't really understand that much about bonds, but I remember way back when we put the first water tank up the Mesa Road, they did a bond for that. And I remember my folks, my mom and dad bought into that. And then cashed out those later when it was paid off or something, and made quite a little bit of money on interest on that. I don't know whether it's something like that is, this is a different bond or.
Well, I have to admit that I am no expert on the bond process. But the bonds, from what I understand, do go out on the open market and people can buy the bonds. And then later, when it's all done, that they would make some income when when the bonds get paid off. Okay. Yeah. So we would be, we've been talking with State Bank of Southern Utah to do the sale, to do all the bonding, do the loan and then the bonding. And I just got an email today from another bank because they saw the notice that was published. And they're like, oh, well, we would like to talk to you about doing the bonds. And I was like, Well, I'll talk to you, but I've been dealing with the state bank enough that I feel obligated to stay with them. These guys would have to get a much better interest rate for me to, change from state bank, or for us to change from state bank to this other bank. So I'll talk to them,
No,
and see what they have to say.
you,
No, I was just gonna comment, it sounded like, your parents purchased the bonds in open market, but not knowing how the makeup of that was. Yeah, I don't know, but that sounds like that's what they did, they just went out and purchased the bonds and made some income off of
seemed
it.
like they,
Tax free too, if I'm not mistaken back then.
yeah, I think what they did is they gave the citizens of the town the first option to buy.
Oh,
I can
interesting.
ask the bond,
Interesting.
I can ask the attorney who's handling all the bond aspects, I can ask him about whether or not they can make some bonds available that the local people can buy, and I'll find out.
Yeah, anyway,
There's a lot of different kinds of bonds. That's overwhelming, I have to be like a profession in that.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I admit, I am no expert in bonds.
okay.
In fact, this has been my education.
That was long.
This has been my education in bonds, reading all the state code and everything involved in bonds, so. Anything else? Nobody online?
There's people online, but they're not
Okay,
actively talking.
okay. Well, we don't do that anyway, I just wondered since nobody's here.
Shall we, close
Sure.
the public hearing? I moved that we close the public hearing and reopen the public meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. So what I have on here was for us to discuss the next steps after this public hearing. And I talked with both the bank and the bond attorney today. And they both said the next step is to talk to the bank and to move forward with them. So,
Yeah, and I think that's one part, the next step in the bond processing and the purchasing.
yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
talking about.
But then we should also have a discussion at a work session, kind of like what Skip was saying. What are we gonna do with the building? Are we gonna, what are we gonna use it for? Are we gonna remodel it? How are we gonna remodel it? And get some public input and public participation, maybe even a charrette, something similar that you did with the role, just to give the public a chance for input, because they come up with some great ideas that we haven't thought about.
Well, I don't wanna do that until we have the key and we have the public be able to go through the building and see.
Yeah, we need actual ownership of the
Before,
building, but we can start the planning process now for that. I think it's far enough along that we can at least have a discussion.
Well, what the bond attorney wrote back and told me today is that anytime after August the 8th, the bonds could be issued. And the closing with the church is August the 10th. So only 2 days after that is when we have to close on the deal, escrow would close. And I'm not sure, hopefully we would get the key the next week, like the 12th, sometime the week of the 12th, I would hope. Unless there's still extra steps that need to be done as far as the closing is. And I know that Crystal and I will have to drive up to Richfield to sign papers at the bond attorney's office. So, cause that's what we had to do for this building, we had to make a trip up to the bond attorney's office. Yeah, and so I know we're gonna have
It's
to do that.
cheaper for you to go up than for us to pay for the bond counsel.
Up here, oh, for sure. They even said that we could do it by Zoom, and I was like, no, I want to sign the papers in person. I don't want to do this by Zoom.
So the last time we met and talked about this, the gal that you called, was she the bond counsel attorney or?
She's there, she was his legal assistant,
Okay. And
paralegal.
so she said we were just having a public hearing today.
That's
We're not taking any kind of vote or anything.
No.
So we will take a vote or an action.
This is why I asked her what the next step is.
That's what I,
No,
so we're just.
we're, according to the way I took it from her, the next step is to talk to the bank. And, when I went back and read everything in, state code that had to do with bonding, when we voted on the resolution last time, that was, that had all sorts of binding things in it, that, like, the mayor could go sign the documents, this could happen, this could happen. It's all, everything that the, state code says that we needed to do was in that resolution, and I was like, oh, okay, I got that now. But no, that's why I asked, if what is the next steps, that's what, do we have another vote that we have to take? And they're like, no, this is it, now you just finish up the stuff with the bank. And,
Yeah, it was kind of weird when we did the water tank thing, it was kind of.
it's very much
Yeah,
the same way.
I feel like the last time we had a meeting, I felt like the message was sent, this is not a done deal, this is not final, but when we voted last on the resolution. So that's why I'm asking, and
I
I
understand,
walked away
I
feeling
understand.
like that was not the
It
final.
does seem confusing that we have a public
So-
hearing and then what's the purpose?
Afterwards.
And what's the purpose of the public hearing and what do you do with,
Yeah, I was
information?
expecting to.
Have another vote, yes, and so that's,
Disappointed that-
that's why I asked, what's the next steps, and because I wanted to make sure, is there, because when I went through all the paperwork, I cannot see that there's a need for another vote, but I thought maybe I'm missing something, and so I called and said, what's the next? And they're like, let's work it out with the bank, and I'm like, okay.
Well, and so I suppose that we could, if we heard something that we didn't like at the public hearing, we could back out.
Exactly, and that's what,
I was wondering if it was part of the process is to put the bond out there to get other people to. They started receiving phone calls today, thanks.
but yeah, and then I
That's
got
what I was
an
wondering,
email from
was
them,
this
so.
part of the whole process?
So, they all want to be involved in the bond process. 'Cause
Yeah.
It makes money for them,
Yeah.
and so, anyway, from what I was led to believe, this is it. And so, yes, go ahead.
Only because this is like a real estate. Sorry.
I wanna make sure that everyone who's online can hear
Carol Wisnall, just because you guys seem to, some of you were unclear on the finality of this, and it seems like you're on track and can't change your mind. If something were to come up, like, I don't know if you have a walkthrough, but in a regular real estate purchase, if you go and find a walkthrough and say you found something horrendous in the systems in there, or something that you wanted to say, whoa, this is a mistake. Do you have the option at that point in time to turn around?
We did have an inspection. We had an inspection, we had a building inspector go. We had somebody go and test for asbestos, lead and mold. We've had a survey.
And we haven't closed yet.
No,
So,
this is the
so
closure is.
technically,
also-
we could back out before
Yes.
like it's time.
Yes,
But you've been, it's kind of fun. It sounds like it's in a funny order from regular real estate, that's why I just
Yeah,
thought I'd
it
ask,
does-
because it
it
sounds a
does.
little alarming.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the-
because of the bonds being.
It's
involved
the,
in it.
yes, the whole process that's weird is the bond process.
Mhm.
Because like I said, we have enough, we've done the inspection, we've had all this different testing done. And we've got a survey, we've done everything, I think, for due diligence purposes.
Mhm.
The question is just, are we gonna pay it right out of our bank account, or are we gonna do bonding? And that's really all this is, in my opinion. And so if we're gonna go forward with the bonding, we go forward with the bonding. If we say, no, we're not gonna do the bonding, then our question is, do we just wire the money straight out of our bank account since we have enough?
And, that goes back to Skip's original question. I would recommend future councils, because I'm not gonna be on the council, what's the bond, 20 years? 15 years?
I
I won't
won't
be on the council for 15 years, but I hope that the future council will always keep enough money in reserve and not spend it. Right now, we've got 3.3 reserve. And if you're doing being smart about your finances, you're gonna make sure you keep your reserves sufficient to pay those bonds off, plus emergencies. So that was very astute question, and yes, we're thinking about it.
So,
And keep that in mind when you come up every budget year, remind future councils that they gotta keep reserve money for that bond.
yes, and I know that, when I met with, the CPA last week, she took the printout from, inside the resolution, and there was a paper that showed the date of the payment, how much each payment was until it was all paid off, because it was in there, and she took that and, was entering it in their program so that they would know. They were already programming the payments in, so that it would get done, but yes, it's still has to be in the budget. Yeah.
Thank you for addressing that.
Sure.
Thanks, Carol.
Any other discussions on this that we need to talk about? But I agree, once we have the key, I was planning that once we had the key, I was going to schedule an open house. Maybe 2 different times, because people would not necessarily be there for the first one, to let people come in and walk through, and then after that, have a meeting to say, okay, now we're gonna talk about what did people see that they thought we should do. But in the meantime, I would like to be able to, and then of course, we have to get bids from a contractor to do whatever we think needs to be done, like the carpet and the painting and the new lights and the new windows and things like that.
Yeah, I think the open house is a good idea, so people know what they can talk about when they come in and see us. And I did like what you did with, Pocketville Road and Charette. I think that's also a good step after people have gone through and looked at it, to get ideas to come up and do that too, if the rest of the council.
Yeah, I'd even
And so
thought
we can
about,
do that at a different council meeting, talk about it, but.
I would even thought about having something like the charrette type thing you're talking about. I hadn't even thought of doing a charrette, but I was thinking that the way to do it, once we got the key, because it's still gonna be this nice, it's not gonna be cold. That we could set up an open house for people to go out, and then we'd have things set up in the park. So that they could just walk right out of the building and have it fresh in their mind, and then,
Yeah, good idea.
Cause I know good and well that as soon as people see that gym, they're going to go, can we have yoga classes in here? Can we have Pilates classes in here? Can we have these? They're gonna wanna do all sorts of stuff in that gym. So I know that that's gonna be a big, put a big smile on people's faces when they
And
see
you
that.
didn't mention basketball.
I know, and I didn't even mention basketball. Or they've got the clips on the side where you can put up a volleyball or badminton, whatever you wanna do, so. And then dance classes, I don't know, you got a big wooden floor,
The possibilities.
or endless,
Ballroom dancing, yeah.
so,
We can have math teaching.
what? What'd you say?
We can have math teaching.
So, anything else, or shall we close the meeting? I predicted this meeting would take 30 minutes, and it is 4:30.
You ready for a motion?
Sure.
I move that, we close today's meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I assume that this was, since this was a public hearing, that we did not need to do any sort of motion where.
We already closed it.
Fine.
We closed the public hearing.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
We did it earlier.
No, I mean that it needed to be a roll call. vote.
Oh, no,
Okay,
no.
that's all I have.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay. My prediction can be, which is
What was
not
your-
very often, that it would be a 30-minute meeting.